canopy of the great emerald jungle was a dense weave of ancient mahogany and creeping lianas, so thick that during the day the sun reached the floor only as scattered gold coins. But at night, when the humidity dropped and the heavy tropical air turned crisp, the jungle ceiling transformed into a tapestry of silver and obsidian. Leo was a fox of the undergrowth, his fur the colour of burnished copper, and his eyes the shade of aged honey. Unlike the other foxes who spent their nights chasing the frantic shadows of field mice or playing in the shallow streams, Leo spent his hours looking upward. He found a high clearing where the rock pierced through the greenery like a jagged tooth. From this vantage point, the stars were not merely distant sparks, they were a language. Leo sat in the stillness, his tail curled neatly over his paws, and watched the slow rotation of the cosmos. Over many months, he began to see patterns that the noisy world below ignored. He saw the great serpent winding to the northern sky and the silver heron poised to strike near the horizon. But most captivating of all was a cluster of stars that seemed to shimmer with a familiar warmth. 6 stars formed a sharp, clever muzzle. 4 more created the lean, powerful legs of a runner. Behind them, a swirling nebula of violet and white light puffed out into a magnificent, bushy tail. It was the Fox constellation. On this particular night, the air was unusually clear, and Leo noticed a faint, shimmering trail of starlight extending from the tip of the celestial fox's nose. It was not a random streak of light, but a deliberate path, pointing toward the uncharted heart of the deepest jungle, toward the mountains that the elders called the Pillars of the Moon. Leo stood, his heart thrumming against his ribs like a trapped bird. He understood in that moment that the sky was not just a roof, but a map. The legends of the star glade had always been whispered in the burrows, a place where the sky touched the earth, and where every falling star landed to become a wish. Most foxes treated these stories as fluff to soothe cubs before sleep, but Leo felt the pull in his very marrow. He stepped off the rock, his gaze fixed on the celestial guide, and began his journey. The first part of the trek took him through the whispering ferns. The vegetation here was so tall that Leo felt as though he were walking at the bottom of a green sea. The fronds brushed against his flanks with a sound like soft sighs. Whenever he felt lost in the green maze, he would look for a gap in the leaves. There, the Fox constellation would be waiting, its silver nose nudging him further east. He moved with a ghost silence, avoiding the heavy paths of the elephants and the territorial markings of the jaguars. He was a small speck of orange moving through a world of shadows, guided by the infinite. By the 4th night, the jungle changed. The ground became rocky and the air grew thin and cold. He reached the edge of reflection, a massive waterfall that tumbled into a pool so still it acted as a perfect mirror. When Leo looked down, he saw the stars beneath his paws. It was a dizzying, beautiful sight. He felt as though he were walking on the sky itself. To continue, he had to cross the narrow ridge behind the falling water. The roar was deafening, and the spray turned his fur to heavy, wet silk. He felt a moment of sharp fear, his paw slipping on the mossy stone. But then he saw the reflection of the star fox in the pool below, steady and bright. He took a breath, centered his weight, and padded across the wet stone with the grace of a dreamer. The climb into the Pillars of the Moon was the hardest trial. The slopes were steep and covered in ghost vines that glowed with a pale, sickly light. These vines did not follow the stars. They tried to pull the traveller away into dark caves and dead ends. Leo had to close his eyes and rely on the internal map he had memorized from the sky. He felt the magnetic tug of the star glade, a warmth in his chest that grew stronger with every upward step. He realized that the journey was changing him. His senses were no longer just focused on the physical world. He was learning to hear the hum of the universe. On the 7th night, the climb ended. Leo reached a hidden valley nestled between 3 silver peaks. The air here did not smell of damp earth or rotting leaves. It smelled of ozone and wild jasmine. He stepped into the valley and found himself in the star glade. It was a meadow of tall, crystalline grass that chimed like bells when the wind moved through it. In the centre of the glade was a pool of liquid silver, and from its depths, soft orbs of light rose slowly into the air, drifting upward to take their places in the sky. Leo approached the pool. He saw no monsters here, no shadows, only a profound and humming peace. He looked up and saw the Fox constellation directly overhead, its light pouring down into the glade like a waterfall of diamonds. He realized that wishes were not things you asked for, they were things you became. He had wished for the stars, and in following them, he had become a creature of the heights, a fox who had conquered fear and distanced to touch the edge of the world. He dipped his muzzle into the liquid silver. The water was cool and tasted of ancient memories. As he drank, his fur took on a permanent, subtle shimmer, a glow that would never fade even in the deepest burrow. He sat by the pool for a long time, watching the wishes rise. He understood now that the map was not just to find a place, but to find the version of himself that was brave enough to seek it. When the first light of dawn began to grey the sky, the star glade began to fade, tucking itself away behind the mist of the mountains. Leo turned to begin the long journey home. He moved with a new lightness, his paws barely touching the ground. He didn't need to look at the sky anymore to know where he was going. The map was no longer above him. It was written in the glow of his fur and the steady beat of his heart. He returned to his kin not as a hunter of mice, but as a keeper of the stars, a small fox who knew that the most important maps are the ones that lead us to who we are meant to be. The jungle welcomed him back with a rustle of leaves and a chorus of birds. Leo returned to his high rock, but he no longer looked up with longing. He looked up with the quiet smile of an old friend, watching the Fox constellation watch over him, while the jungle slept in the peace of his protection. The journey back from the pillars of the moon was not the same as the journey there. Though the path was steep and the ghost vines still reached out with their pale, grasping fingers, Leo moved with a quiet radiance that pushed the shadows aside. The silver water he had drunk from the star glade had settled into his marrow, and every strand of his rust-coloured fur now carried a faint, pulsing glow. He was no longer a creature hiding from the dark. He was a small, walking lantern in the heart of the great emerald jungle. As he descended into the lower mist woods, the silence was broken by a frantic scratching. Behind a tangle of fallen mahogany, Leo found a young pangolin, its armoured scales pinned beneath a heavy, rotted trunk. The creature was exhausted, its eyes clouded with the terror of the impending night. Leo did not have the strength of a bear to lift the wood, but he knelt beside the trapped animal. He focused on the warmth in his chest, allowing the star glow in his fur to brighten until it cast a sharp, brilliant light. The light did something the sun could not. It softened the ancient, stubborn wood, making it brittle and light. With a gentle nudge of his snout, Leo watched as the log crumbled into harmless mulch. The pangolin scrambled free, sniffing at Leo's shimmering fur in wonder. Without a word, Leo tilted his head towards the west, his glow illuminating a safe trail back to the pangolin's burrow. The small creature followed the trail of light, and Leo watched until it was safe, realizing that his journey had given him a power that was meant to be shared. Further down, near the banks of the Serpent River, Leo encountered a family of capybaras huddled in a thicket. A sudden flash flood had washed away their usual crossing, leaving them stranded on a muddy spit of land while the water rose. The night was black, and the crocodiles were moving through the reeds like logs of obsidian. Leo stepped onto a flat stone at the water's edge. He looked up at the Fox constellation, which was now partially veiled by rain clouds. He closed his eyes and let the star map within him guide his movements. He began to pace a specific rhythm on the stones, and as he did, the glow from his paws began to settle on the surface of the water, creating a bridge of solid light. It was not a bridge of stone or wood, but a path of reflected stars. The capybaras, sensing the ancient magic, walked across the shimmering surface as if it were dry land. Once they reached the safety of the high bank, the light dissolved back into the river, leaving no trace of the miracle. By the time Leo reached the familiar borders of his own territory, the jungle seemed to recognize him. The trees did not just whisper, they sang a low, harmonic greeting. He returned to the flat stone where his journey had begun. His kin were there, huddled together against the chill of the morning. When they saw him, they did not see the bedraggled traveller they expected. They saw a fox who walked with the poise of the heavens. Leo did not tell them of the crystalline grass or the pool of liquid silver. Instead, he led the young cubs to the highest point of the rock. He waited until the moon was thin and the stars were at their brightest. With a soft sweep of his glowing tail, he pointed upward. As he moved, the cubs realized they could see the connections between the stars more clearly, as if Leo's presence was a lens that sharpened the world. He showed them that they were never truly lost as long as they looked up. He showed them that the map of the stars was also a map of their own hearts, that the bravery of the hunter and the grace of the heron were qualities they carried inside. Leo lived for many more seasons, becoming a legend whispered by the jaguars and the birds alike. He never lost the shimmer in his fur, and he never lost the habit of looking at the sky. He had found the starglade, but more importantly, he had brought the starglade back with him. In the deepest, darkest nights of the jungle, the animals no longer feared the shadows, for they knew that somewhere in the undergrowth, the star fox was working, turning the darkness into a map of light for anyone brave enough to follow. The legend of the fox who carried the heavens in his fur did not remain confined to the deep thickets of the great emerald jungle. Like the scent of jasmine on a wandering breeze, the story eventually drifted to the edges of the wild, reaching the small village of Oakhaven, where the houses were made of clay and the people lived by the rhythm of the harvest.